Perfect. It's perfect because I think it's exactly building on both your points around why can't we just have a carbon footprint on products. Data's missing, holistic measurements are missing,
Yes.
Frameworks that actually create one movement around what businesses need to capture and report on, disclosure. And that's where we're super supportive of actually having this holistic approach, because ultimately we need the data to understand how to have a science-based approach, and only then can we start to both hold ourselves and each other to account, and also to start pricing the externalities against the data.
Yes.
And then, of course, that becomes a completely different transparency around who is then claiming what. And back to the communication topic, of course, if you can't measure back to a robust science-based approach to how you can claim that something is green, again, it just becomes lots of claims. So we're super supportive, again, around how the EU Green Deal is really pushing this agenda. We are consulting with the EU Commission around, from a private sector perspective, of how we believe this needs to work, and also giving the input, because it's very complex. The global supply chains that we're trying to map in a digital passport, say, is absolutely needed and very difficult work. And again, it has to be done. But I think if all companies having to do it, ultimately it creates a level playing field, it creates a new rules of the game, and then we can start to have a whole new different level of conversation and communicating to customers. We have tried lots of different approaches to customers. We struggle with getting breakthrough, I have to say, on telling complex stories in simple ways. There is a tendency that things get oversimplified, but we keep going. And I think all these frameworks, disclosures, and reporting standards would help us to bring a robustness into that.
Perfect, thank you. We're coming to the close of our session, which should have been titled From Green Wishing to Our Adventure to Save the Planet, really. That'll be the next one. We've had a really brilliant conversation. Usually these start with production, but we've started with consumption and what it means for people, how to help them. We've looked a little bit from a sort of disruptive tech side, and to some degree on the sort of subsidy and resources use on the production side. And we've talked a lot about, well, what it would take to get that cycle moving. So data and standards, which should be the foundations of any good society, but we don't have the ones we need right now, and the financing and the sort of collaboration, which I think each of you talked about from a very interesting perspective, and the role of non-state actors as voices that can keep our cycle moving. So I'm going to ask the same question, if you can answer very, very briefly as we close this. Over the next... Good Lord, we're now being joined by the aliens as well. Okay, I did actually have to moderate a session on space last week, which was another thing that, hey, we can bring that into this. For the next 4 days, so for the folks in the room here who care very much and actually see this as not the Cinderella SDG, which I know Jorge hates, but the heart of getting our economic model working for all of us and for our planet. Like, what is the marketplace of the future? What would you like to see us doing at the end of, sort of, to leave here with, to do next? Can I start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that having that concrete plan of action in place is extremely important. We have talked and talked a lot for the last 50 years, even more than that. And even between conferences, we always try to say that, oh, we're going to have the next conference and that is when we're going to discuss this. No, there is a lot of space and time between these different conferences. And really what these big meetings should serve as is this celebration of action that has taken, and then putting plans of action in place to ensure that in that time we're able to have the just transition of our economies and our societies and of our environment as well. And I would say here that education is key, and not just education of the children and young people, but education of all stakeholders. David Orr once said that all education is environmental education. And I think that is something that we desperately need when we're thinking and talking about what should we do next. We need to have that self-awareness. Once again, we need to be holding everyone accountable and ourselves accountable, and we have to stop procrastinating, and then once we do that, we will be able to achieve that sustainable world. So I am here calling for implementation and ensuring that every single person out there, whether you're government, whether you're private sector or your civil society, you understand the power you have as a consumer to bring about change, to affect production, and to do your bit to create a sustainable world.
Thank you. Stop conference hopping, get stuff done. All right, Rolf.
I completely agree. I completely agree with her. We should stop conference hopping. Let's get action. And I just gave my example with the solar panels. I know we haven't focused on production, but I think it's important that we do. And the transformation we need to have is we need to shift from production from just primary raw materials. I think we've extracted enough materials. I mean, they're saying that in all our mobile phones, there's enough gold to pile up, 3-4 stories that we can use in future electronics. So I think we need to stop disturbing the planet. I know the mining companies won't be too happy, but I think we've exhausted that option. Clearly, it's creating serious impacts, whether it's emissions, whether it's biodiversity loss. Mining has a serious impact. And I know this is a very powerful lobby. They don't like saying mining is not good, but we need to look at how we can make use of the resources and the materials that we've been able to extract from the planet cost effectively before we can say mining is justified again. Because if we keep on saying mining is justified, then we forget that we can actually make use of the resources that we currently have. So more moving towards a life cycle approach, more towards moving a circular economy. There are big challenges there, but I think we need to start hammering at solving how we can use those secondary materials we already have been benefiting from. Thank you.
Thank you. And not currently in the plan, but that sort of connection mining to how consumers care about provenance is an interesting one, huh? Heba.
I think we need to really address if there is any lack of hope around the fact that we can create a just and regenerative future, and that includes the circular economy dynamic of that. Ultimately, and it's been said, but it has to be about action and having a plan, having a clear roadmap. And for every company and organization to understand what is their role to get there and make it actionable in time, starting today. And ultimately, it's then about also collaborating across. Like, no one can do this on their own, no sector, however big, however strong. So really to identify the right partners, and particularly for big companies, what is the internal narrative? Because ultimately, they can have a really strong leadership at the top. Often there's a really strong groundswell of co-workers wanting this movement. But in big companies, it's often in the squeeze in the middle. So how do you really transform the narrative in the organizations that we work in to bring that movement along?
Thank you. Isabella.
I think that no add comments. Only I agree with everything. This is a good recipe, as Tim told you, probably will save the world. But what I should probably ask, please, no announcement of Stockholm+100. Okay? You don't need this. And don't have time to buy. It's something very concrete. But I used to be very pragmatic, and I used to be really realistic. I need to be, but please, let's be pragmatic, optimists, but don't forget to dream. Because without hope, we are not in the core of the problems. And humankind, humanity, we need to believe that we can do best than we are doing today, but we did best in the past. Look, if you compare the data of the world in the past, we got it. Unfortunately, some outcomes, and also with inequality that we need to face this in new perspectives. So be pragmatic, be optimistic, understand the realities, the national, the subnational realities, understand not only legalities, but economic informalities. This is very important to face if you want to go into the transparency, traceability, blah, blah. But also, please, no announcement, Stockholm+100. I want to be back here. This is the ghost of Copenhagen, okay, the father of Hamlet. But I think that we should be back to make sure only to share good actions and outcomes. It's not to discuss more problems. We are not psychologists, we are not judges. We need to invite people to think together, to act together, to cry and be happy together. And this is, for me, really a good, multilateralism must be a place where we should come together, be together, learn how to be together. Don't go in the fragmented world, please. So it's our responsibility to come together. So my message, let's do it. Why not?
Perfect. My message to everyone here is, remember, as a consumer, one of the essential needs that United Nations has defined for you is the promotion of sustainable consumption patterns. I'm not sure that that's strong enough, frankly, but if you as a consumer remember that the United Nations defined that one of your essential needs is your access and the promotion of sustainable consumption patterns, go into every transaction with that in mind. I think that would be wonderful from my perspective. But please join me in thanking...
That I was a member of the panel that proposed Sustainable Development Goals. And I can confess that Brazil, you have to work hard to convince other countries that you should have this sustainable consumption and production as a Sustainable Development Goal. And Brazil and Indonesia, we came together with Germany. We have a partnership to face the resistance that we have around the world against this. So it's more than our responsibility. We need to understand better what it means to have a better quality of our life. If you not understand this, it's really difficult to change. But I'm convinced that we are changing. So let's move. Yeah. It's a better world. Be sure of this. Okay, and we come together with the new multilateralism momentum, and I hope with as environmental multilateralism as a building block for a better world. Let's do it. If not, we need to relax and forget the world. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Indeed. So please join me in thanking our panelists for their time, their insights, their brilliance, and thank you for attending.
This is for you.
Can I get some sound here, please? And let's give a round of applause to our moderator. What a great job, not only to our panel, our moderator. Thank you. So be careful with the step here. We are all here on equal footing, so thanks to our wonderful panel. We're not done. We still have first a coffee break, so you're all invited. You can go to the second floor. We're going to redo this. We're going to come then again and continue discussing on changing how we do business, changing how we inform, I believe. And the third one, if I am not changing how we live. So stick around, great discussions coming, and thank you, all of you. You have started great conversation today.